died for your right to vote? Here's what they mean. This is Reverend George Lee. He was one of the first black people to register to vote in Humphreys County, Mississippi. He used his pulpit and his printing press to register other black voters. White officials in his area offered him protection if he stopped registering other black voters. He refused. They murdered him. This is Lamar Smith. He was shot dead on the lawn of a courthouse in Mississippi in broad daylight. Broad daylight. Even though there were witnesses, nobody ever came forward because nobody wanted to admit that a white man shot a black man. All because he organized black voters in a recent election. This is Herbert Lee. He helped register black voters. He was killed by a state legislator who claimed self-defense. Lewis Allen, another black man, came forward to say that it wasn't self-defense. He was later murdered as well. This is Jimmy Lee Jackson. He should be talked about more in your history books. He was at a march trying to protect his grandfather and mother from a state trooper who eventually beat and shot him to death. His death led to the marches in Selma that eventually led to the Civil Rights Act being passed. This is Reverend James Reeve, a Unitarian minister from Boston. He was beaten to death for marching in Selma. This is Viola Gregg Liuzzo, a housewife and mother from Detroit. She came all the way from Detroit by herself to help people get from Selma to Montgomery and back. And she was gunned down on a highway by a passing Klansman in a car. Seminary student Jonathan Myrick Daniels went to Alabama to help with voter registration. He was arrested, then mysteriously let go and gunned down by the deputy sheriff. Vernon Ferdinand Dahmer, a wealthy man in Mississippi, said he gonna help pay the poll tax. They bombed his house. He died from his burns. And last but not least, you know the name, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But do you know the sacrifices he had to make so you could go to the voting booth? Do you know that his children had to grow up without a father so that you could go to that voting booth? Did you know that Coretta Scott King had to...
And he didn't say for you to go to the voting booth and vote for a man who just compared a black fucking idiot to Martin Luther King. That fool that's running down there in North Carolina, I forgot what his name is, but he has said some very disparaging things about black people. And Trump got up there and said, he's better than Martin Luther King. This is what this man had to say. So you black people who are out there voting for this man, shame on you on that. All right. Now, I also say, this is why I tell black people, you cannot just lump all white people. I'm sorry. God put us in a unique position to have to figure out who hates us through conversation and different things, as opposed to just looking at them. Like a person that hates black people can look at a black person and know that's the person he hates. We cannot just look at white people, because those 4 or 5 white people right there proved why. White people who marched with us, and there were plenty of them, got gunned down and mistreated just as bad or even worse than black people because they were considered traitors. Don't act like it's a lie. It's not. These people gave their lives for the cause and gave it knowing that hate element was out there. So black people, you got to stop that. And now look, once again, I say, we could have never, this generation could have never been those black people back then. Gunned down because getting people to register to vote. Are you kidding?